The next piece of the update is going to be looking at some opportunities that are likely going to be extracurricular. And we'll start out with Jimmy Korn looking at Odyssey of the Mind.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Jimmy Korn. Like she said, I'm going to talk to you today about Odyssey of the Mind. I'm getting my screen pulled up here so we can get going. All right. Like she said, this can sometimes or usually be used as an extracurricular option for your students, but this can also be embedded in the school day. We've seen that happen a lot with gifted students. And I just want to preface before I even start this that Odyssey of the Mind is for all kids, not just gifted kids. You know, we find kids that excel in this program from all walks in their educational career. And I, as a kid that grew up in a gifted program, it was this program that kind of hooked me in. So I think very highly of this program because I was a part of it growing up, and it does great things for all students. A little bit of background about me. I'm on the state Odyssey of the Mind board. I help judge at local, state, and national tournaments. I also help write problems at the national level and do trainings throughout the United States. So a little bit of information about Odyssey of the Mind. This is just going to be a quick overview of the program. Kind of just give you a little small tasting of the buffet, so to speak. It is an international creative problem solving organization. It teaches 21st century skills. It's a perfect partner for STEAM standards. So it goes all across the spectrum, academically, even into the arts. And it can service every GT student from math to leadership, especially leadership. It's all covered in this program. And so our new tagline in Kentucky Odyssey of the Mind is that it teaches kids to imagine, create, and inspire. So that's what I'm going to focus on as I go through this presentation. So when it comes to imagine, Odyssey empowers students to not just recite data, but to actually imagine and make connections in a powerful and creative way. Our program pillar here is that this is all about divergent thinking. This is the antithesis of standardized testing. You know, we talk all the time about how we don't need to teach the test, but yet tests are the way that it seems like all schools are still held accountable, and we're still having that argument every day. But this shows kids that this is not a bubble to fill in, that there are multiple correct answers. There's more than one way to skin a cat. There's a different way to solve a problem, and you think differently than your partner. And so imagining those different ways to solve problems is a major pillar of this program. One part of this program, we have two parts. It's a long-term part and a spontaneous part. Long-term problems, which I'll talk about in a moment, are problems that teams get together and solve over the course of a long period of time, usually several months. Spontaneous, on the other hand, is something that happens on the spot. It is spontaneous. Students are usually given a problem to solve on the spot at the competition. It's usually something that takes 5 to 10 minutes to do. And there are three types of problems. There are verbal problems, which allow kids to express themselves verbally to solve it. There are hands-on problems where students are usually given materials to make or build something. And there are usually verbal hands-on problems where students have to make or build something and then talk about it. This increases creative flexibility, and it increases their general problem-solving skills. And so I'm going to show you some pictures of some things that I've done with students in my trainings to give you an idea of what happens. For example, a verbal problem, you might ask the kids to name things that go up and down. And a common answer would be something like an elevator, whereas a more creative answer would be my parents' blood pressure while I've been home during the pandemic. Might get a little chuckle out of a few people, but thinking of a different way of things going up and down, and maybe not a literal up and down. When it comes to hands-on problems, this is actually a verbal hands-on. This particular problem that I do with kids, this is a little floral wreath that you have, and you give kids several items in a Ziploc baggie that includes markers, popsicle sticks, straws, pipe cleaners. You can kind of see all the things there in the picture. And the point of the activity is that the kids have to tell a story, but as they tell the story, they have to animate it by adding to the wreath. And so Up here in the upper left corner, this was a story, I believe it was a sports story, and that was like the football goalposts. If you go down here in the bottom left, I remember this story being about a rainbow and a portal, and they had to go through it. This middle one was actually a crown, and they were talking about a princess and what the different things meant on the crown. So kids are getting the opportunity to physically make something on the spot, but then they also have to be able to verbally talk about it and play off each other's answers. So it was a really cool activity to kind of see the final product of it just being a green wreath to being this colorful creation at the end. You also have some hands-on problems that are a little bit more, I would say, math science oriented. This particular problem, kids had to suspend raisins above the table using only the materials provided. So they got a box of raisins and they couldn't use the box, but they had like a sheet of paper, they had some straws, some toothpicks, some sticky labels, and a little bit of putty, and they had to try to suspend the raisins. And as you can see on the left side here, they actually just made a prism out of the paper and then kind of made like a little gurney out of straws and the stickies and put the raisins on it. And now they were suspended above the table. Or over here on the right, they made what I joke and call a raisin taco. They took a piece of paper there and they made it into a taco and pierced it with the toothpicks to make sure it could hold the raisins. And then they found a way to secure the straw to the table, and then they hung it like a Christmas ornament on there, kind of like a hammock. So I thought those are really awesome ways that kids could take just basic minimal materials and still find a way to suspend something above the table. This particular problem that kids did for spontaneous was they had to build a bridge between the two blocks and then suspend the items that they had in the Ziploc baggie from those bridges. So the bridge could be something as simple as just a pencil between the two, or they could actually make something out of like paper clips and let it suspend across. But they had to hang the ping pong balls, they had to hang little toy cars. They had several items in the baggie, and the heavier the item was, the more points you got if you got it to suspend on the bridge. You can see that teams actually poked holes through the cups and then put stuff down in the cups. Some of them wrapped it in pipe cleaners and hung it like a Christmas ornament. But there are all kinds of ways that the teams work together to hang the items from a bridge between the two blocks. So those are some examples of spontaneous problems. The next part of Odyssey is that you get to create. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but we all know that create is at the top of Bloom's taxonomy. And it's so important to me that as a kid that grew up frequently overlooked in the gifted population, because they do the whole they'll learn anyway sort of thing, that you're giving kids the opportunity to use their knowledge and make things with it, that we're not just filling in the bubbles for a test, that we're actually putting our knowledge to use and creating things and bringing our ideas that you imagine to life. So each year, Odyssey publishes 6 different problems, and each one has a different creative emphasis. So there are different intelligences that are addressed within each problem. So that way kids can really grow their strengths and become more confident in their skills and abilities. Problem 1 is always a vehicle problem, and students create a vehicle to perform certain tasks. You can actually see a vehicle down here on the bottom right. This was actually a tow vehicle. It had to be towed behind something, and it's made out of a laundry basket. And I don't have a good picture of it, but underneath it, the wheels are rolling pins. Problem 2 is technical. Students usually have to create a device that completes certain tasks. A really popular technical problem a couple of years ago was that students had to do an entire performance based on a haunted house, and all the special effects of the haunted house, from the noises to the visual things, were technical in nature. As a side note, when kids create their solutions to these problems, they are in 8-minute skits. They make an 8-minute performance to present to the judges. So they have many different aspects they have to solve in that 8-minute performance. And this is the part that they get to work on for several months at a time. Problem 3 is what we call classical, which is where I am as a judge and I help write problems. Students are challenged to create their own twist on classical works of art and literature. Sometimes they have to recreate Da Vinci works of art, or this year it's a musical that they're having to do. So this really calls to your arts kids. Problem 4 is structure, very math and science oriented. Students have to design and create a structure that supports as much weight as possible. They're usually these little 8-inch structures made out of balsa wood and glue, and they have weight stacked on them, which is the picture that we have over here. Pictures cut off where you can actually see the tiny structure under that. But a lot of these structures hold anywhere from maybe just 50 pounds to at World Finals, teams are holding, 1,100, 1,200 pounds in a little 8-inch balsa wood structure that can't weigh any more than like 15 grams. So it's a really intense competition. Problem 5 is performance. And I kind of joke and call this the SNL problem because it's sketch comedy. Students are challenged to create a humorous performance about a given situation. And problem 6 is a primary problem that is designed just for grades K through 2, where we kind of introduce kids to the creative problem solving process. It's non-competitive. It might have some technical aspects. It might have some art aspects. It has a little bit of everything to just kind of get the kids interested. What I'd like to do right now is show you a quick little video about this year's problems to let you see what kids would be doing if you chose to participate. Oops, there we go. All right, so there's a little sneak peek at this year's problems. If you were to go to our website, there's a place that gives you the synopsis of exactly what you would have to do this year. And I'm really excited about this year's problems. I think they're one of the best batches we've ever had, top to bottom. I think they're going to really grab kids' interest, and they're much more current and relevant than in years past. One big, huge thing about Odyssey that I think sets it apart from other things is that we have no outside assistance. All solutions are 100% student created. As a coach, you don't give answers. And sometimes that's really hard as a teacher. You know, we say all the time that we want to lead kids into learning. Well, that is the point of Odyssey. If they're working on a work of art, you can't go over there and paint on it or try to help correct it. You can't tell them how to better mathematically figure out that structure. You can teach them skills and give them the tools, and you can guide them through leading questions, but the kids actually have to make the products. And sometimes you think, well, kids can't do that, like when it gets to some more higher level thinking skills, but it's amazing what kids do if you give them the tools to be successful and you let them figure things out on their own. It helps students develop a sense of pride and confidence in their skills and abilities, and it really helps lift the fear of fog and self-doubt as kids are actually get to dabble and make things. These are just some pictures of really awesome products that I've seen over the years judging. Up here in the upper left, these are just like thin strips of like reed that they have wrapped and made into these little bowls. This is an alligator costume that I actually got into on stage. The kids took they took cardboard and actually like carved out pieces and then layered it and glued it to make this alligator. You can kind of see it all back through there. This particular one in the middle, this costume in the middle, is actually fire hose. Odyssey puts everything with a cost limit so that everybody is on the same playing field. So every team has to solve the same problem for, I'm just going to throw a number out there, $125 or less, and you have to provide proof of that. So you recycle a lot of materials, and a particular parent was a firefighter and they were getting rid of fire hose at the fire department. And the kids realized that if you cut the fire hose down the cylinder, it opens up and makes a rectangle, and then they could make other things out of it. And that's what that costume is made out of in the middle. Behind them, the big head is made out of PVC pipe that was heated and bent. And then they took a pool liner that someone was getting rid of and they used it for the skin and painted it. And those are trash bags for the hair at the top. On the left, this is from a Da Vinci problem a couple years ago. A team actually made a portrait of Da Vinci out of dryer lint. That entire portrait over there was middle school. So the 6th through 8th graders from Poland made that particular self-portrait out of dryer lint. On the right, this was a high school team that made a Mona Lisa entirely out of chewing gum. Yeah, kind of crazy. So I kind of talked a little bit about this, but another big part of Odyssey of the Mind is that it normalizes failure. Anytime imaginative ideas enter into the creative realm, failure will appear, which I think is fantastic because we need to make that a learning moment. So many kids are afraid of failure, that they're afraid that they can't get something right and it's going to count against them. Especially gifted kids get really, really tied up in being wrong sometimes, and they don't know how to recover from that and to grow from that. So I think it's really important that as coaches in this, you discuss what went wrong and how to improve it. And that's just part of the process, and that people learn from their failures, and that you probably learn more from your failures than your successes. And finally, the last pillar of the program is inspire. You provide the spark, but students ignite the blaze. Students learn from each other and inspire one another to succeed in this program. Learning is communal, and I've heard that in the last segment over here, and you talk about how important it is that students are in school. And it's not just important that students are learning from teachers in the room, it's important that students are learning from students, and that they're learning together to realize that they have skills that are different than their partners. And whenever you combine those skills together, you can make something great. And I think that this program gives kids the space beyond the regular classroom to develop those talents and skills. And the important thing is that they become confident in using those talents and skills to be able to not just use them in this program, but in life beyond high school, and maybe go into a career that allows them to continue using and developing these skills that they're finding through this program. I would ask that you would please fill out the little survey that I have here about today's presentation. It's just a little bit of info. Let me see if I can find the chat. Here we go. I will not bombard you with information you don't want, but I like to kind of keep track of like who I've spoken to, who have we reached, If you would like more information, there's a place there for you to say, hey, I would like more info, and provide an email address. But if you could just fill out that form that's in the chat right now, it's just a Google form. And I didn't even collect email addresses from it. So you don't even have to give me an email if you don't want. One thing that I think is really awesome this year that we are doing is we do have a shadow program. This year's state tournament will be at Western Kentucky University, which is, I believe, March the 26th. I think that's the Saturday. But we have a program where that if you're interested in doing Odyssey of the Mind, but you're a little unsure about exactly what the program is, you can come in for the day and we take you around to see every problem. You get to see what the kids go through from pre-staging to performance. You get to talk with teams. You get to talk with coaches. You get to talk with judges. We just drop you in the deep end of the pool and lead you around to see all the awesome things that this program does for students. And hopefully that'll help you make an awesome decision to join the program. You can find and follow us online. We have a Facebook page, Kentucky Odyssey of the Mind. Our Instagram and Twitter handle are the same, which is Kentucky OOTM, Odyssey of the Mind. And my email address, if you would like to speak with me more, I just recently had a job change. For the past 15 years, I've been the band director at Corbin High School. And 10 days ago, I accepted a job in Nelson County as an administrator at Old Kentucky Home Middle School, doing a lot of stuff with curriculum up there. So I'm in the middle of a new adventure myself right now. And it's been a whirlwind of 10 days as I'm still trying to not live out of a suitcase for a bit. But if you would like more information from me, there's my email. Please fill out the little survey that I sent and I'll get back with you. But I don't know if I've ran over time or if that's got me right to it. But yeah, that's my presentation for the day.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. Odyssey of the Mind is a program that I have enjoyed, my children enjoyed. It's been around a while, and it is so good for our young people. So thank you immensely for sharing this opportunity.